Alright, so we can get into leveling our big three based on everything we've learned about the stereo. Couple of quick notes. Pretty much only one. I've got a soft clipper chain on the master. I also do want to set up a little bit of signal flow, so I'm just going to dock these tracks. And then I'll go ahead and grab some signal flow stuff from Band for Band right now. Verb is stereo send for the 808, and we can also use convolution to add reverb to the melody. Let's bring down all our drums. We can automatically just route them drum room, and then we can get started with the low end. Okay, I like that. But since it's gonna be like the loudest thing, and since I don't have a kick, I could go up to like that -1. I'm not gonna route that to the drum room. I'm gonna send it to my stereo send instead. And so a good rule of thumb is to have all of your drum sounds, including the 808 and hip hop, be mono down the middle. So you can use the stereo separation knob to kind of merge it down the middle. If you notice that something's not mono, or if it's like a little too stereo, like if it's a little bit stereo, that's really not that bad because that's just gonna give it width. But if it's like way too stereo, like you would not want an 808 to be super stereo. But we seem to be good here. So I'm just gonna EQ this send really quickly. That's gonna give it width on the treble, and that's nice. So now let's just bring in our main clap. Again, main sound is down the middle, and then we give it a little bit of width with that send. And so that reverb is just a bunch of delays, adding a washed out effect to the drums to make it seem as if it's being played in a room. Bring in that last clap. Maybe bring that 808 just a little bit down. I like that. So before we do the melody, I just like to apply the basic stack. Gonna be some EQ. I did add some EQ already because when I was making the beat, it's just I can't program 808s if I'm hearing all that low end. But then I'll actually find the fundamental character with an actual neutron EQ or parametric EQ too, and kind of just EQ a little bit more of that low end and try to accentuate that fundamental character a little bit. Then from there, I want to add delay to give the melody width, so that it fills that spectrum a little bit more in all three dimensions. But at the same time, I want to make sure it has good volume, which we'll do when we level it against the other elements of the big three. One last thing I want to add is reverb. So I'm just going to come into Neo Verb. That's so fire. So now we just level it in with the big three. And then I'm also going to send it to this convolution send and set up the sidechain for that as well. This is a pretty dynamic melody, so the way I'm gonna deal with that is with a little bit of compression. So basically, what I'm gonna do, remove that from here, send this to its own track, and add a melody bus from Band for Band. That's gonna allow me to deal with that dynamic range a little bit better. Then I can send this to the convolution instead, and then we'll just set up the sidechain again. That shit's sounding clean. From here, you can be creative with how you use the stereo field to fit in the rest of the sounds. A good rule of thumb for beginners is to keep most of your drums down the middle in mono and to simulate orchestral arrangements when panning the instruments. The volumes and frequency distributions are tougher to explain without an example, so let's jump back into the beat. So from here, it's about fitting everything else back in. So I like to begin with the hi-hat because it's that pace keeper, and I want to make sure it's leveled in a good way. Again, with every sound that's not the low-end instrument, I'm going to be EQing out up to 90 Hertz. And it's pretty simple. It's just dragging this band down here. It's just going to clean up that low end and allow my 808s, and if I had a kick, to just be accentuated a little bit more. In general, it cleans up that low end, which is one of the more difficult areas to manage in your mix. Good habit in general. It'll clean up the lingering low end trash that's there, as well as it's a good habit for catching low end trash that you might not be like consciously aware of in general for every instrument. And then another thing I like to do is give certain sounds a little bit of stereo, particularly with claps or snares. So I might take my main snare and give it a little bit of pan so that I can give it a little bit of stereo, and it'll make it sound fatter in the mix. So I can actually bring it down a little bit and it'll still have presence. So it gives me a little bit more of that headroom to work with while still being super loud. Now we get into bringing in that hi-hat. I definitely want it to be present, especially compared to something like the melody. And I guess by gain, it's going to be louder than the melody, which we've talked about in other videos. But again, you never want it to be overpowering that melody. It's got to be present, not necessarily louder by actual amounts, but very present. So always think about that. Another thing about hi-hats is they'll usually be normally down the middle, like pretty much in every genre. They'll be closer to the middle, but you can pan them in either direction. I've noticed a lot of times I kind of hear them pan to the left. Even in this sample is panned a little bit to the left in general. So I'll kind of work off that for the rest of the hats in my beat. So we bring this in. Give it a little bit of panning, just a little bit. Bring in the next hat. Bring in that last hat. Then bring in this effect really quick. Now I actually want this to be really loud, but the problem here is it's gonna mask everything, which is not bad. I actually like a good amount of deliberate masking in my music that I work on because it actually gives it character and taste. But I don't want it to mask my melody because I want my melody to be the most present tonal thing that is a melody. Bro, I don't know. But look, here's how we're gonna deal with this, right? We're gonna take a look at the frequencies where this is performing the strongest. Naturally, from the fundamental character, which starts at about 200 all the way up to like, we'll say that power really starts to take a dip at around 2500, 2K, 2500. So what we're gonna do is come back to this and we're gonna unmask manually using another equalizer. Just like this, up to that frequency that we noticed it at. And that's gonna get that sound out of the way of that melody. If we bypass test that, and I actually want to give that a little bit of delay too. So I'm going to go to outer space because I want to give it like a really nice colorful tape delay. We could even push that gain a little bit just because the mix is so clean, bro.